This is Accelerated Geometry, and the lesson for today is an Algebra Skills Review in Chapter 9. It's called Completing the Square. Completing the square is a technique that is useful sometimes in solving quadratic equations. The steps to solve this quadratic equation, ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. First, get the x squared term and the x on one side of the equation and move c to the other side. If there is a number in front of x squared, step 2 says divide all three terms by a to get x squared alone. So divide by that number in front of x squared to get x squared alone. Now here's the magic step. It's kind of weird. Look at b, take half of it, square that answer, and add that answer to both sides. When you do that, in step 4, you should be able to factor the side that has the x squared on it and simplify the side with c on it. Step 5, take the square root of each side, and step 6 is solve for x. So I'll do a couple of examples for you. The first one is x squared minus 2x minus 35 is equal to 0. Now, when I look at this one, I can solve this by factoring. Two numbers that multiply to be 1 times negative 35 is a negative 35. That add to be a negative 2 are a positive 5 and a negative 7. There's no number in front of x squared. I can build two parentheses and put my positive 5 and negative 7 in the backs of the parentheses, and then split this x squared into x and put that in the front, and now that is set equal to 0. If two parentheses multiply to be 0, either the first parenthesis equals 0 or the second parenthesis equals 0, which means x is a negative 5 or x is a positive 7. Now I did that just so that you would see what the answers should be. So now I'm going to take the same equation and I'm going to solve this by completing the square. Okay, first step says get the x squared term and the x term on one side and move the plane number c over to the other side. Second step, if there's a number in front of x squared, divide by it to get x squared alone, but x squared is already alone. Okay, step 3, take half of b. You don't really have to worry about the positive or negative because you're going to square it anyway. So half of 2 is 1. Square that, 1 squared is 1, and add that to both sides. So I have x squared minus 2x plus 1, and over here I have 35 plus 1. Because of what we've just done, this will always be factorable. Two numbers that multiply to be a 1 that add up to be a negative 2 are a negative 1 and a negative 1. So that means that this is x minus 1, or x minus 1 squared, and on this side I have 36. So this will always factor into one parenthesis with a square on it. Now take the square root of both sides, so that gets rid of the square and I'm left with x minus 1, and here I have a positive or a negative 6. If I add 1 to both sides, x is alone, and here I have 1 plus or minus 6, which means it's either 1 plus 6, which is 7, or 1 minus 6, which is a negative 5. So I got the same exact answer that I did when I just did regular factoring. So I wanted to show you that I will get the same answer. Now you might think, well, why would a person do completing the square? Because it seems to be more complicated. Well, there are uses for this in algebra. And so you kind of have to know this technique. Okay, let's do another one of these. So here is 4x squared plus 8x minus 36 is equal to 0. Okay, first thing I see is, everything can actually be divided by 4 right away to make this easier. So I have x squared plus 2x minus 9 is equal to 0. Now, remember I said that sometimes this is, a useful technique. What if I try multiply and add here? If I try to have two numbers multiply to be a negative 9 and add up to be 2, I can't find those numbers. There are no numbers that multiply to be a negative 9 that add up to be a positive 2. So multiply and add does not work, but completing the square will work. Okay, first step, the x squared and the 2x stay on one side, the plain number goes to the other side. If you need to, divide by the number in front of x squared, but there is no number in front of x squared. Okay, take half of b, so half of the number in front of x, so that's a 1. Square it, 1 squared is 1, and add it to both sides. So I have x squared plus 2x plus 1 equals 9 plus 1. Okay, this now factors. Two numbers that multiply to be 1 that add up to be 2 are 1 and 1. So it'd be x plus 1, or x plus 1 squared, and this is 10. Take the square root of both sides, and I have x plus 1 is equal to a positive or negative square root of 10. Subtract 1 from both sides, I get a negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 10. So it's a negative 1 plus the square root of 10, and a negative 1 minus the square root of 10. So this answer will turn out to be a negative 4.16, and this answer will turn out to be 2.16. So I was able to complete the square to figure out the answer to this, whereas regular multiply add did not work. So completing the square is kind of useful. Okay, here's one more use for this. It says rewrite the equation of the circle by completing the square. Identify the coordinates of the center and the radius of the circle. So I have x squared plus 8x plus y squared minus 6y is equal to a negative 9. Okay, I want to get this into x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared form, because that is the equation of a circle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to complete the square on the x's, I'm going to complete the square on the y's. Okay, so in this part, the x squared doesn't have a number in front of it. So I'm going to say x squared plus 8x. Take half of the b, half of 8, that's 4. Square it, that's 16, and add it to both sides. So I have a 16 here, and on the other side I have a negative 9. I'm going to add a 16 on there. Okay, then I'm going to do the same thing with the y stuff. Y squared minus 6y. Half of 6 is 3. 3 squared is 9. I'm going to add it to this side and add it to that side. Now, this is going to factor. Two numbers that multiply to be 16 that add up to be 8 are 4 and 4. This is x plus 4 squared. And this is two numbers that multiply to be 9 that add up to be a negative 6. Would be a negative 3 and a negative 3. So this would be y minus 3 squared. And over here, the negative 9 and 9 will be a 0, so I'll be left with 16. So now I would be able to tell people what the center of the circle is. It's a negative 4 for x and a positive 3 for y. And I could tell what the radius is of the circle, because this is r squared, so r would be a 4.